Hi, welcome to Healing the Trauma Within. In this session, I am talking with Tricia Parido. We are going to be talking about how we don't need things outside of ourselves to experience peace, joy, comfort, or relief. Let me tell you a little bit about Tricia. She is a recovery lifestyle enthusiast, speaker, and published writer. She is a nationally certified life coach, an international master addiction specialist, and a professional life interventionist with a psych degree in process behavioral and chemical addiction, who loves to help change lives. Specializing in life transitions and post-treatment journeys, Tricia is ever committed to serving her clients worldwide to help them find the emotional intelligence they need to conquer their life challenges. As an active business owner of a thriving coaching practice, Turning Leaves Recovery, Life and Wellness Coaching, seated in evidence-based practices, she not only teaches her clients how to live the life they deserve and live free, but she also teaches those that aspire to become professional coaches how to do so passionately and professionally. So Tricia, welcome.
Well, thank you. That was a lot. Thank you for saying all of that.
Well, you go through it and you earn everything that's in your bio. The least you should do is, have it read out every once in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is a big topic, because like you were saying in the green room, trauma survivors, we tend to look outside ourselves for validation, for comfort, for all of that stuff. And you're telling us that we don't have to.
No, and you don't have to do it in such a long journey as I did. My story is years long. It's seated in 30 years of trauma, sexual assault, rape, domestic violence, emotional abuse, but also just in this feeling inside of myself that I didn't fit, I didn't belong, I felt very disposable. And I also had a lot of near-death experiences, just so that inner turmoil with my own physical body that I was given, that was created in the womb, right? Like my genes, right? So I have trauma and had trauma in so many different areas. And so my journey was 30 years long in that, that deep dive into, trauma and addictions, all kinds of them, whether that was control, eating disorders, disordered eating, obsessive shopping, whatever it was, right? Like I was constantly in this, whatever space. My recovery journey was 25 years long. And so people go like, that math doesn't work. But, so for me, it unfolded in so many different ways and levels and textures. So, what I've discovered in my 5.5 years of, deep diving education, right? And in learning everything that I could learn about what made me tick from a psychological perspective was exactly how we can actually stop doing those things. The people pleasing codependency, the, emotional eating, the overindulgence of alcohol, the, just all of the things, you name it. We do not, we attach emotions to things outside of ourselves. Like if I just have that suit, I won't have that social anxiety, right? If I just could, if I could just get that one person to talk to me, then I'd feel like I fit in. If I, just eat this ice cream, I'll feel better. If, and so we're constantly reaching outside of ourselves. The diet culture, very much relatable to anybody and everybody that's listening, right? If I could just lose 50 pounds, I'll feel bikini ready. Or if I could just, whatever. And we go in and we're like, okay, I'm doing this 30-day crash. And it's that all in and then all out. And it's, just relying on something else to allow us to feel valid in our own life or valuable to society. And in our traumatic relationships, which I know a lot of you are saying, yeah, but, this is what it looks like for me. I get it. We feel trapped, we feel stuck, but we're relying on that other person to change. And we can't do that. It's up to us to lead by the example of how we want to see ourselves operating in our environment. It's up to us to decide how we want to feel in our own body. And it's also up to us to lead by the example of how we want to be received, perceived, treated, and experienced in our own environments.
Are you sure we haven't met before? Because you've been singing my song. You're like telling my
awesome.
story, the 30 years of sexual assault, rape, domestic abuse, the addictions. I'm like, are you sure you don't know me? You know, for me, one of the biggest things that I did was I looked to others to find my worth, specifically men. And for me, it was, well, if, you know, he looks at me and thinks that I'm attractive, then I must be pretty. Or if I sleep with him, then he must like me, or, you know. And I, for years, based my worth on what I thought other people thought of me. I was putting thoughts and words into their, not even into their mouths, because they weren't even speaking it. It was all in my head.
Absolutely. I went through and you're singing my song, right? I won't say my first offender that violated me. It wasn't my first one, but the one that had a hugely impact on my life was somebody that after the assault stalked me for a year, and was then posed to me under the guise of, I just wanted you to be my girlfriend. And that implanted into my very, very, very barely adolescent mind, right? Not to toss out, an age at that, but a barely adolescent mind, it gave me that thought process. Well, okay, right? So then I started seeking, and then it wasn't, that wasn't working. But, if we think about what you were saying, that, I was putting words into their mouth. We're not putting words into their mouth, but we're putting our perception, our perspective on, in our minds of what the other. So like, if we don't like what we think other people think of us, like, it's up to us to change that change that dialogue, hear through a different filter, see through a different lens. Because when we get a text message that says, I can't believe you did that, how many different ways can you read that and interpret that or perceive it? A gazillion.
Yeah.
A gazillion. And so, we have to be willing to seek that clarification. Like, wow, help me understand, before I respond, are you as excited for me as I am for me that I did that? Or are you like really disappointed in me for some reason that you didn't like it? Like, we have to, debunk our own go-to. Because generally our go-to is the negative, right? We have all of those negative attachments, and those negative attachments are addictive behavior. And it's something that we condition over such a long period of time. And this doesn't resonate with everybody, but I find it does with 50% of the people. Our conditioned behavior looks like this. Every time you fall down and scrape your knee when you're a little kid, you get a popsicle. You go to the doctor's office, you get what? A lollipop. You get an award at school, you get, your favorite dinner, you guys get the idea, right? Like, it's our very child growing mind to see, because we start out in that external locus of control position. Everybody does. We cry, we get a bottle. I mean, it dates back that far. We cry, we get a bottle. We cry, we get our diaper changed. And somebody comes to our call. And I don't want to put this on parents, because it's not all the parents, and those parents were led by somebody also. But if the parents aren't leading by the example and allowing us to move into our autonomy to choose, to learn how to truly self-soothe in effective fashions, for all intent and purposes, teaching, because we get excited when our kids learn how to tie their shoes, and we actively participate in that. Potty training, the same thing. Somewhere along the line, we decide we want to pull the reins back in because they're adolescents. Like, why? Like, why are we holding on so tight? We want to be leading by good example. And making sure that, they know that they have the autonomy to become who they want to be, whether we agree with that. Anyway, I could talk your face off. I know we only got 20 minutes. So, we really want to be looking at these things of, these conditioned ways of being and how much we are, emotionally putting on that glass of wine. I'm super irritated, agitated, and annoyed. I'm going to open this bottle of wine. You're giving that bottle of wine the power to control how you think and feel. And if we think about that, especially if it's in a depressive moment, in a sad moment, and we're relying on a depressant, and the same with, food, like, yeah, we're going to feel full, but is that the kind of full we want? Because if we don't think about the aftermath, which is the self-loathing, self-defeating, mean things, we become mean girl all inside of ourselves because we ate the bucket of brownies. And so it just doesn't make any sense. It's definitely, some crazy making happening.
Oh my goodness, you want to talk crazy. So I remember a time where I was really mad at somebody for something. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I remember thinking, I'll show him, I'm going to go binge eat.
Yep. What are you
showing? Showing who what? No, all I'm doing is harming myself. But in my mind, it made sense. And I don't know, maybe we were arguing about my weight, who knows? But in my mind, whatever was going on, that made sense. I'm going to go eat all this junk and that'll show him. Show him I have no control, maybe.
Right. That's about the only thing that it does. And it's the same, for anything it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about how many people have gotten in arguments with their spouses, or here's even better. How many people have come home after a very impulsive shopping spree? Like, you went to Target for 3 things and now you're sitting in your car wondering, how in the heck am I going to get all this stuff in the house without anybody noticing? What is the justification story that I have, right? How am I going to justify this purchase? And then we come in all defensive. I need this because, and you can't tell me how to spend my money, or, da, 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 da. And we lead by defensiveness, right? And it's all the same thing as, somebody that has an addiction to alcohol justifying away why they need to have 4 glasses of wine every day.
So how do we stop that and turn into ourselves, to that internal locus of control?
Right. So, I mean, if we want to keep this, super simple, palatable, in this space, because it's the space that, we have, like, to spark your interest, start by committing to yourself to observe. The next time you go to buy something that's not on your list, ask yourself the emotional reason why. The next time you go to eat something, right? Ask yourself why. Because if there's an emotional attachment in there, if there's an emotional purpose, it's not the right thing. I'm not telling you got to give up eating, shopping, drinking wine. I'm not telling you got to give them all away. But if you're going to sit down with a glass of wine and it has an emotional attachment, that's not an appropriate thing, right? So we want to go, okay, I want to have this glass of wine with this steak because it goes really well with the steak, and then we can be done afterwards, right? Because, yeah. So be willing to observe how often you are emotionally seeking something outside of yourself for a purpose, and just log it, write it down, track it. Don't try to do anything with it just yet, but, observe that so that you can come up with those identifiers. And then, then shift into that, whatever commitment you're going to make with yourself. If there's an emotional attachment, I'm not going to do it. Right. For my shopping addiction, I love to go out. I had to leave the credit card at home. I went window shopping with my cell phone. And then I would come home, and my deal with myself was, if I could recreate that outfit at home, I wouldn't go and buy those things. Right. And so, you have to create that commitment. What is it that you want to do to change or improve or grow through these identifications, right? And then, you know, we have to find our way to get to our why, right? Our why. And then where do we want it to go? And then we can cultivate the how. So, you know, why do I feel like I need this, right? And being able to really have that identifying factor. So we have to regain our power. So when you hear something coming out of your mouth that sounds like, you make me feel, he makes me feel, you made me do this, I'll show him, right? That's your why. Or it's not your why, but it is now. We have to convert it into a real why. You have to be willing to move past that facade, that story that you tell yourself about what the why is, and get to the real why. And it's because, you know, I don't want anybody else controlling me and da da da. But we got to be able to get our power back, because the deal is this is our life too. It gets to look, feel, be however we want it to. We just have to choose. But we also have to be willing to give that to everybody else. So this is the last little tidbit, right? For today anyway. That is, you know, we have that power to choose. But when we say, this is my life, it gets to look, feel, be however I want it to, I have to extend that to you. And I have to extend it to the next person driving next to me on the freeway. And I have to, right? So long as they're not violating. And if we have an effective filtrating boundary system and solid, strong limits and limitations, and we know what they're seated in, then we can do this. But we have to move out of the stance of a judger and into the stance of a learner. And what I mean by that is just like you said, I put a perspective on somebody that they didn't even get. You're judging that person without even inviting them into a conversation or asking them. You're like, hey, help me understand. You know, am I reading you correctly? Like, we don't talk. We just do a lot of assumption, right? But we also do a lot of judging in different forms. Like, that person's dumb, that person's wrong, that's whatever. You know, anytime it feels judgy, it is. And we need to move into that stance of a learner. And the only way that we can do that is to start learning how to utilize the power of inquiry for deeper understanding, whether that's with ourselves personally or with another.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I've done is when I find myself judging myself through somebody else's eyes, it's okay, you know, leave them out of it. What am I really having trouble with today?
Yes.
When I decide I want to go eat something and it's not something healthy or anything like that, it's, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Why am I eating this? And if I do eat it, then I give myself permission. So I don't beat myself up over it. You know, so I've had to do some of that, taking back my control, taking back my power, and taking personal responsibility for me.
Yes. But I like what you said, because it's taking back, you know, taking our control, but also being able to do so without feeling guilty, selfish, punished, or restricted.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because then it almost takes away the what's the word I'm looking for? The naughtiness, the rebellious of it. When you give yourself permission, I'm going to give myself permission to have this glass of wine tonight.
Yep.
You know, now all of a sudden it's not, I'm doing something to rebel. It's just, okay, I'm going to have a glass of wine now.
Right.
And so it doesn't make you necessarily want more.
Right.
Mentally.
So, I mean, yeah, that's that concept of, you know, one cookie feels restrictive and I know it's not going to satisfy me, you know, and this, I always bring up cookies because that's like a deal for me. That's like a deal for me. And so it's always, I can have two. And sometimes when I give myself permission to have two, I only have one or one and a half, but I know that I'm not restricting myself to only having one, because, you know, that it's not effective for me with my history and my relationship with food.
Right. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
You are
I know, I think both of us could talk about this for a lot longer. But it all comes down to, just introspection. Look inside yourself. What do you need? What do you really need?
right. How do you want it to look, feel, be?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Thank you again for joining us on this summit. This has been fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
And listeners, thank you for joining us in this session. We'll talk to you in one of the other sessions.